This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news this hour, a stinging rebuke of President Trump and congressional Republicans from the former FBI Director James Comey. He says the president is, quote, lying about the FBI and undermining the rule of law, and that GOP lawmakers are enabling him. I'll talk about that and more with Congressman David Cicilline of the Judiciary Committee. And our correspondents, analysts, and specialists are also standing by. First, let's go to our senior congressional correspondent, Manu Raju. Manu, Comey's remarks followed his second closed-door appearance in recent days before the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees. What is his message tonight?
Yeah, he came out of that closed-door meeting blasting the president and Republicans for staying silent over President Trump's handling of the Russia investigation, over his criticism of the FBI and the Justice Department, and for a number of Trump tweets raising doubts and questions about the raid that occurred for the president's former attorney, Michael Cohen. James Comey, talking to reporters, did not hold back.
The President of the United States is lying about the FBI, attacking the FBI, and attacking the rule of law in this country. How does that make any sense at all? Republicans used to understand that the actions of a president matter, the words of a president matter, the rule of law matters, and the truth matters. Where are those Republicans today? At some point, someone has to stand up and in the face of fear of Fox News, fear of their base, fear of mean tweets, stand up for the values of this country and not slink away into retirement, but stand up and speak the truth. I find it frustrating to be here answering questions about things that are far less important than the values that this country is built upon.
Now, what really set James Comey off was the president's tweet from over the weekend in which he called Michael Cohen a rat and also questioned how the FBI, in the president's words, broke into Cohen's office, even though the FBI had an illegally executed search warrant to go through Cohen's premises. But when I asked James Comey directly about the president's contention that Michael Cohen is a rat, Comey pushed back.
This is the president of the United States calling a witness who has cooperated with his own Justice Department a rat. Say that again to yourself at home and remind yourself where we have ended up. This is not about Republicans and Democrats. This is about what does it mean to be an American? What are the things that we care about above our policy disputes, which are important? There's a set of values that represent the glue of this country, and they are under attack by things just like that. We have to stop being numb to it. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you need to stand on your feet, overcome your shame, and say something.
Now, behind closed doors, Comey's faced questioning about his decision not to announce publicly in 2017 that President Trump was not under investigation, as the president wanted at the time to clear his name. Comey defended that decision, Wolf, saying that it appears that he may be right in not making that decision, that announcement now, because it appears, according to Comey, that the president is now under investigation. Now, Comey based that on public reports, not any inside knowledge, but he said that had he made that declaration then the FBI would have to come out now and clean that up. He said good decision for not making that decision back in 2017, Wolf.
All right, good point. Manu, Comey also defended the FBI's investigation of the president's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, after the president repeatedly attacked the FBI for the way it questioned Michael Flynn. Now, what's the latest on that?
Yeah, I asked him directly about that, too. He said it's nonsense to criticize how the FBI handled this. This was something that the normal procedure from going in and interviewing someone in this level of capacity. And he also said that Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. So there's no question that he did lie to the FBI. And I also asked him about the questions that have come out in the recent court proceedings that James Comey did not inform his superior, Sally Yates, at the time that the FBI went in and interviewed Michael Flynn. He said, well, the reason why I didn't do that was because had I done that, Sally Yates, as an Obama holdover, would have been strongly criticized by the president for greenlighting an FBI interview of the president's national security advisor, Michael Flynn. He said, look, I'm probably right about that. And one other point, Wolf, I asked him also if he has confidence in the acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, and he said no comment, and he walked away. Wolf.
Interesting. All right, Mano, thank you very much. Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Jim Acosta. Jim, first of all, any reaction there to Comey's rather stinging appraisal of the president?
Not yet, Wolf, but we should point out the president has not been bashful about going after Jim Comey in the past, so I would expect that that's going to be happening within the next 24 hours after what we heard from the former FBI director up on Capitol Hill. But as you know, Wolf, President Trump's legal team is scrambling to stay ahead of the latest twists and turns in the Russia investigation. The president and his outside attorney, Rudy Giuliani, are both beating up on the special counsel's probe, throwing punches in just about every direction, but it seems to be the truth that's taking a pounding. The president's legal team isn't exactly spreading Yuletide cheer when asked whether Mr. Trump will sit down with special counsel Robert Mueller in the Russia investigation.
They're a joke over my dead body, but, you know, I could be dead.
The president's outside attorney Rudy Giuliani suggested, without any evidence, that Mueller's investigators are now digging deeper into Mr. Trump's past business dealings, complaining the Russia probe is now out of control.
This is a witch hunt. They are going back now. They're going back to 1982, 1983. They're going through business records. My goodness, they went from collusion to obstruction, no evidence, now campaign finance.
Giuliani is speaking out of both sides of his mouth. When asked whether one of the president's associates, Roger Stone, gave Mr. Trump advance warning that WikiLeaks was about to dump damaging information about Hillary Clinton during the campaign, Giuliani said no, but then added it wouldn't be a crime either way.
Not at all. I don't believe so. But again, if Roger Stone gave anybody heads up about WikiLeaks leaks, that's not a crime. It would be like giving him heads up that the Times is going to print something. Once the crime, this is why this thing is so weird, strange. The crime is conspiracy to hack. Collusion is not a crime. It doesn't exist.
Giuliani also seemed to offer a new detail about the Trump Tower Moscow project. The president's former attorney, Michael Cohen, pleaded guilty to lying to Congress about the project, admitting discussions about the proposal lasted until June 2016. But Giuliani suggested that Mr. Trump may have had discussions which went on longer than that.
According to the answer that he gave, it would have covered all the way up to November of 2016. He said he had conversations with him about it. The president didn't hide this.
While Giuliani hit the Sunday talk shows, the president worked over Cohen on Twitter, tweeting, his one-time fixer only became a rat after the FBI did something which was absolutely unthinkable and unheard of until the witch hunt was illegally started. They broke into an attorney's office. But that's not true. Cohen later said those federal investigators were courteous and professional. House Democrats are eager to hear more of Cohen's story when they take control of Congress next year.
I'm hoping that Mr. Cohen will come before the Congress where he can tell the American public exactly what he has been saying to Mueller and others without interfering with the Mueller investigation.
The president spent much of the weekend airing his grievances about the Russia probe, blaming it all on former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, tweeting, Jeff Sessions should be ashamed of himself for allowing this total hoax to get started in the first place. With the president staying behind closed doors, acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker was one of several administration officials stopping by the White House. From outgoing Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, who's suddenly leaving the Trump team, to incoming Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, who has some explaining to do after this video surfaced from just before the 2016 election.
Yes, I'm supporting Donald Trump. I'm doing so as enthusiastically as I can, given the fact I think he's a terrible human being, but the choice on the other side is just as bad.
The president hasn't lashed out at Mulvaney, but he did vent his frustrations on Saturday Night Live, tweeting, the show is nothing less than unfair news coverage and Dem commercials. Should be tested in courts. Can't be legal. That may have something to do with the SNL sketch showing what life would be like if Mr. Trump had never been elected.
I would never ever flip on you. You're my best friend.
And the president's outside attorney, Rudy Giuliani, also seems to be conceding that Mr. Trump did not initially tell the truth when he said he didn't know about the payments made to his alleged mistresses before the 2016 election. The president, Giuliani pointed out, was not under oath when he denied knowledge of those payments to reporters earlier this year. So as far as the president's legal team is concerned, Wolf, it's just fine for the president to change his story, not tell the truth, as long as it's to the media. Wolf.
All right, Jim, thank you. Jim Acosta, thanks very much. Let's dig deeper into Rudy Giuliani's latest remarks about the Mueller investigation. Our senior justice correspondent, Evan Perez, is with us. Evan, Giuliani says there's no way he's going to allow the president of the United States to sit down with Mueller and his team for an interview, a Q&A. In fact, that would happen, according to Giuliani, over my dead body.
Right.
Why is he so opposed that the president is telling the truth, has nothing to hide? Why is he so opposed to the president sitting down and answering some questions?
Wolf, I think it's because they're afraid of what could happen in such a session. Look, the president, as you know, when pushed in a corner, tends to say things that may or may not be true. And so this is what his legal team has worried about from the beginning. They've been against an interview. The president has publicly said that he would be willing to do one. More recently, you've seen the president kind of come around to his legal team's thinking. And you remember that they had responded in writing to the questions from Robert Mueller's team. And, I'm told that they're not even expecting to respond if the Mueller team asks for clarifications to those written questions. They should not expect any more information from the president's legal team, simply because at this point they believe they've given enough to the investigators and that they should be able to provide, they should be able to use what information they have to produce the Mueller report whenever that is.
Now, you remember Michael Cohen. Originally, he told FBI, the investigators, that he stopped having conversations with the Russians about building a Trump Tower in Moscow in January of 2016. Now, later, he said that was a lie. It really continued what he said until June of 2016. But then yesterday, all of a sudden, Rudy Giuliani says that those conversations, Michael Cohen may have had additional conversations with the Russians about building a Trump Tower in Moscow as late as November 2016 on the eve of the election.
Right. I was struck by that comment simply because that pushes the timeline a lot further along, Wolf. And keep in mind, candidate Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were both given briefings in the late summer, around September. They were given their first intelligence briefings. And one of the things that they were told about was the initial findings that, the belief that the Russians were already doing things to interfere with the elections. For instance, the hack of the DNC. So the fact is that the president, or the now president, then the candidate Trump, would have been pursuing business in Moscow, a Moscow Trump Tower project, well into the election season, even after he was told about what exactly was happening. Obviously, some of this information was also public. So it's a remarkable thing for the president's lawyer to be saying, simply because it means that, while the president was still pursuing business in Russia, he was aware that they were doing things to essentially to help his campaign. And I think that's going to be something that we're going to see in the Mueller report whenever that comes out, because I think that's an important thing for the American public to know, especially because the president, during the time of the election, said that he had nothing to do with Russia. And
my own suspicion, it's clearly a suspicion, is that Giuliani knows something about what Mueller knows, that Mueller may have some evidence, meaning that the talks continued until November 2016, and Giuliani's trying to get ahead of that kind of disclosure by saying what he said. That's just the suspicion that I have. Now, Michael Flynn, the president's former national security advisor, he's going to be sentenced tomorrow. He's going to be making a statement. We assume, what is he likely to say?
Well, one of the things that he's going to say, obviously, is that he's sorry. He's taking responsibility for lying to the FBI, Wolf. That's part of these hearings. But outside of this hearing, there's a lot of atmospherics. The right wing certainly is animated about this. They believe that the FBI snookered Flynn into lying, that they essentially framed him. And so I think what this hearing is important for us to hear in Michael Flynn's own words is that he is taking responsibility for lying to the FBI. Judge Emmett Sullivan, as you know, Wolf, is not somebody who suffers mistakes by the government. So if there are any mistakes by the FBI, we're going to hear about it from this judge.
We certainly are. All right, thanks very much. We'll see what happens tomorrow. That could be a big story. Evan, appreciate it. Let's get some more on all of this. Democratic Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island is joining us. He's a member of the Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, thanks so much. What do you make of the former FBI director speaking out so forcefully against the president and in defense of the FBI and the Justice Department?
Well, it's not a surprise. I mean, here's a gentleman who's dedicated his life to the rule of law as the director of the FBI, who takes a lot of pride in the work that the professionals at the department do. And I think, frankly, he's just sort of sick and tired of the president's efforts to undermine the rule of law, to attack the good men and women at the FBI, to call into question the motivations of those that are doing the work at the Office of the Special Counsel, and to remind people that the President of the United States described a person who is cooperating with the Department of Justice to get to the bottom of this as a rat. I mean, that's something you hear from a crime boss or a criminal, someone who's running a criminal enterprise, not something you expect to hear from the President of the United States.
Is it wishful thinking, Congressman, for the former FBI Director Comey to think he can persuade Republicans to act as a check on the president?
You know, hope springs eternal. I had the same conversations with my Republican colleagues and remind them that, you know, their grandchildren are going to look back at this period in our history and say, Grandpa or Grandma, you were in Congress when Trump was president and all this happened. What did you do? And then many of them are going to have to say, I did nothing, or I facilitated this. So I think Director Comey was hoping to spark some interest in their part to stand up and do their jobs and hold this administration accountable, protect the rule of law, recognize the core values that have made this country the envy of the world, and reignite in them some responsibility to stand up and defend the rule of law and the values of our country.
The president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, as you heard, is defending President Trump. He's now arguing that collusion is not a crime. Do you see a new legal strategy emerging now from Giuliani?
Well, I mean, it's sort of a pattern. They deny things happened at all. Then when they're caught and there's evidence that, in fact, those events occurred, they say, well, if it did occur and if the president was somehow involved in this activity or that activity or knew about it, it's not a crime anyway. Look, the crime is conspiracy to defraud the people of the United States. And I expect that Mr. Mueller is going to continue his work to help us find what the facts are and to report to the Congress. But this notion that it's perfectly okay to conspire with a foreign adversary in an effort to change the results of a presidential election or attack our democracy and then lie about it, that's okay. Mr. Giuliani is dead wrong, and Mr. Mueller is going to establish that, I think.
But, Congressman, do you have any direct evidence as we speak right now that the president personally conspired with a hostile power, namely Russia, to try to interfere in the U.S. elections to his benefit?
Well, we know a whole bunch of data points. We know about a meeting at the Trump Tower with Russian operatives. We know that they lied about that meeting, that they changed the real subject of that meeting, that they have finally had to admit it happened. We know of now 38 indictments or pleas. We know about multiple contacts between members of the Trump campaign and Russian operatives. We know about the release of emails and the contacts between Roger Stone and WikiLeaks. I think the special counsel is putting these pieces together point by point, and I expect when he has his final report to deliver to us, we'll have the opportunity to read it and determine what action is necessary. But there's a lot of information out there about contacts between the Trump campaign and the Russians, about certain activities and certain events, and it's either the biggest coincidence in the history of the universe, or there's something going on here that I expect we're going to learn about in more detail when Mr. Mueller finishes his investigation.
I asked the question, Congressman, because the White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, says there is absolutely no evidence that the president personally, maybe some others, but that the president personally was involved in any such conspiracy.
Well, again, we don't know. We don't know all of the information that Mr. Mueller has. We know the way the Trump organization ran. We know people who are now cooperating with the investigation. We don't know all the information they've shared with the special counsel. But I know one thing for certain. When this investigation is done and Mr. Mueller delivers his report, we'll have all the facts and we'll be able to make the right judgments at that point.
Congressman Cicilline, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, there's more breaking news just ahead. The former FBI Director James Comey urging Republican lawmakers to stand up to President Trump. Will they heed his call? And straight ahead, we have disturbing new details emerging right now of Russian meddling in American politics, broader than previously known and continuing right now.